Hello class, and welcome to Note 7.G.6, Volume of Prisms. In our standard today, we're covering the portion that is solve real-world and mathematical problems involving volume of three-dimensional objects composed of triangles, quadrilaterals, polygons, cubes, and right prisms. For our formula, we technically actually only have one formula, and that is the volume of a prism. And that formula is the base area times the height. For base area, we use a capital B. So you'll see over here our formula is V equals capital BH. Remember, the capital B is not base. That would be a lowercase b. Capital letters meaning you need to use a formula to get there. So that would be base area. You'd need to use your area formulas. That means if it happens to be a rectangular prism like this one, you'd use volume equals length times width times height. Notice we could also use base times height, but then you'd have two h's right next to each other. And since those h's represent different numbers, we want to be careful we don't make a mistake. So I always use length times width. Volume of a triangular prism, now we have to have the two h's. So volume equals 1/2 base times height. Notice that there are two heights. One is the height of the triangle, and one is the height of the prism. Be very careful. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that in two examples where we have these two different heights, and you want to watch out for that. So let's take a look at teacher example 1. So put your pencils down, find the volume of the prism. Okay, and notice I've got a little study tip here for you. The area of the base of a rectangular prism is the product of the length and the width. You can use the formula volume equals length times width to find the volume of a rectangular prism. So that's the same thing I went over. So when you first set it up, you use our traditional prism formula, volume equals base area times height. Remember that red B stands for area of the base, which in this case would be length times width. Now if we look at the base, in this case I'm looking at the base being the bottom. Okay, but you could also say this piece here is the base or this piece here. It doesn't matter as long as you stick to what you've committed to. So the area of the bottom rectangle is length times width, 6 times 8, times the height of the prism. Now remember, the height of the prism is the distance from one base down here all the way to the top base, the other base. So that is 15. It's not the height of that base, that rectangle. Okay, now we can go ahead and multiply in any order that we want. I'll do 6 times 8 first, which we know is 48. And finally I get to multiply that by 15 and end up with 720. Of course I know that this is not my final answer because I do need units. Now, one thing to be careful of. With volume, volume is always cubed. Unlike area, which our units were squared, this one our units need to be cubed. So we put our yards and then we need to cube it. So the volume is 720 cubic yards. Okay, let's take a look at another teacher example. This time we do have a triangular prism, and this is tricky. So please slow down and work carefully. First of all, go ahead and write the formula. Volume equals base area times height. Now remember, my formula for area of a base, since my base is a triangle, and notice the base is not on the bottom. Any prisms that you have, the shape that you only have two of is your base. So here we have two triangles, so those are my bases. And if you need to, you want to get out your shapes, your cutouts, and look at those to help you. Now my formula for area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So I'm going to plug these two numbers. My base of my base is right here. The height of my triangle is 2 inches. Now this blue height, remember, refers to the height of the prism, the distance from this triangle to the triangle in the back. And that distance is right here at 4. Again, this is where most people make their mistake. They say the height of the prism itself is 2 inches, and it is not. Be very, very, very careful. Okay, now I can go ahead and multiply. If I choose to, I may want to cut 4 in half because that'll make it a nice easy number to work with. Half of 4 we know is 2. Then I can multiply 5 times 2 times 2. Or I can cut 2 in half and make it 1, do 5 and 5/10 times 4, and then I know I don't even have to multiply it by 1. Okay, so of course, In this method, I chose to cut 2 in half and get 1. So that means 1 times 5 and 5/10 is just 5 and 5/10. 5 and 5/10 times 4 is 22.0, which would simply be 22. Of course, I do need my units, and I need them to be cubed, so I need to put inches cubed on here. The volume is 22 cubic inches. Okay, so finally we have our student practice 1 pencils up, which means you are going to be writing these down. Find the volume of the prisms. The first prism we have is a rectangular prism or a cube, so you're going to want to make sure you use your rectangular prism formula. The second prism is a triangular prism. Be very careful with this one. Remember, the height of the prism is the distance from the front triangle to the back one. Go ahead and press pause, press play when you're ready to see your answers. Okay, let's take a look and see how you did. We start by writing the formula, volume equals base area times height. In this case, it is a rectangular prism, so we're going to use length times width times height. And then since it's a cube, all my numbers are the same. You may have chosen just to do sides cubed, which would also work. 4 cubed is the same thing as 4 times 4 times 4. Now I'm going to go ahead and do 4 times 4, which we know is 16. And then 16 times 4, which we know is 64. Of course, this is not my final answer because I do need my units and they need to be cubed, which we'll show you in just a minute. Okay, problem number 2. Now this one was the tricky one. Hopefully you did okay with this. Remember, the base area is 1/2 base times height. Now if I look at my picture, my base of my triangle is 12, my height is 5, and if you switch these two, remember the order doesn't matter. Then my second H, my different H, is the height of the prism. From the front triangle to the back triangle, this distance right here is 9 meters. So I plug my numbers in. Now I can multiply in any order. I'm going to choose to cut 12 in half because it is an even number. It makes it easy to cut in half and get 6. And then 5 times 9 is 45. Now when I multiply 6 times 45, I end up with 270. Of course, again, this is not my answer because I do need my units and they need to be cubed. And I'll make this a little larger for you. Okay, so the first one is 64 feet cubed. The second one is 270 meters cubed. Make sure you are cubing your answers, not squaring them, because you will get it wrong otherwise. Have a great day and don't forget to do the quiz.